process back in 2021. There was, at the time, kind of a lack of consensus. We weren't meeting in the church. There were a lot of reasons why that process didn't really move forward. So that was tabled at the time. The vestry, in the meantime, was eager to continue with the momentum of our combined parish, to clarify our legal status as an organization. And so the vestry appointed, recently, a process committee to set up a timeline and establish parameters for a new naming process. And they actually got some input from bishops. So a permanent name team was created, and the vestry appointed a 6-member team to recommend a permanent name. And the beauty of the team is that it's made up of the 3, if you want to look at the 3 braids that make up our parish right now. The braid that was St. Luke's, the braid that was St. James, and the braid of people who have come since the consolidation. And I'm borrowing the braid. St. Jamesers will know I'm borrowing the braid concept from St. James. We used to use the braid as worship, learn, and serve, but it also serves as a metaphor really well for where we're at right now. So we have a committee made up of those 3 strands of the braid, and it's Sandy Puckett and Dave Larson. There's Sandy and Dave is there. Neil Cuthbert and Karen Spencer from St. James Braid, and then Linda Lyman and Jake Fisher. There's Jake and there's Linda right here. So that's your permanent name team. So there's an approved process, and it stretched from June 1st through September 15th. The process had 6 listening sessions, 3 of which were live on a monthly basis. This is the 2nd one. There's corollary Zoom meetings. We have the first one. We'll have the 2nd one later this week. For those that can't attend the live, we had 0 attendance at the last Zoom meeting, and it was a great. It was great. It was a great time for the committee to talk. So we had an impromptu committee meeting. So it was a very useful time to have on the calendar. We would have had a conversation had anybody showed up, but it turned out to be a very, very useful thing to have. So we're going to do these meetings through September 15th. There's a deliberation process for the permanent name committee that lasts a couple of weeks from the middle of September to the end of September. Then we have to get the approval of the bishop for whatever new name the committee lands on, and then that in turn will go to the vestry to be looked at and approved at their October meeting. And then after that, the permanent name committee basically disbands and gets turned over to the vestry, but it's not a done deal having a new name until the annual meeting in January. That's where the final ratification of the new name happens. So the naming parameters, these are the ones that were developed by the bishop and the vestry, and there's a few things just to review them quickly. The name of the church moving forward has to include the phrase Episcopal Church or Episcopal Community. Okay, so one of those 2. The name must be either the name of a saint or the name of a theological concept. So words like ascension or holy table or things like that. But it has to be one of those 2 things. It can't be a made-up name. It can't be Church of Perpetual Motion. So those are 2. And then the name should also not duplicate the name of any other churches in the metro area. So not just Episcopal churches, but other churches. So there's no real confusion about what Saint this or whatever that you're going to. There's also some guidelines or guidance that we got from Susan that I think informs the process, and that was kind of the focus of the last meeting we had, when we wanted to kind of really have the name key off of the mission of our parish, which is an inclusive Episcopal community practicing the way of Jesus by loving our neighbors, striving for justice, growing spiritually, and celebrating in word, music, and joy. word, music, and art. So enjoy. And having it centered in the mission and also kind of centered in kind of other things like that, I think were really good for us to be reminded of. So we're into listening sessions. There's one more next month, and then we'll go into the deliberation process. And you all are participating by coming to the meetings, which is really great. It's gratifying for the committee to have so much participation in these meetings. Suggest names, send in names. We have an email address, naming@stlukes.net. Talk to any of the committee members. Just be part of the process, because we are discerning and talking and thinking as we go along. So that's my intro. So I turn it next to you. Or
we're gonna have Jake.
Oh, Jake's gonna do a prayer. Okay. You can stand right there.
All right, well, thanks everyone for being here. And as we settle into the bulk of the discussion, we thought it might just be worth remembering God in this process and recognizing that there is a lot of emotion, tension, and certainly a lot of thought that we'll be doing here over the next few minutes. Let's take just a few moments to gather ourselves and to arrive completely here in this space so that we can share openly and honestly with one another. So let's just take 3 deep breaths. You close your eyes if you like, at your own pace. Let's pray. Assist us, Lord, in living hopefully into the future and determining a permanent name for our parish. Help us to set unnecessary fears aside and to recognize our potential for creative response. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. Last month, I really enjoyed the small group conversations that then we took to a large group. And so we're going to do that style of conversation again, where we talk to whoever you want to that's nearby or far away. The first question, we will regather and share what you heard that sounded intriguing to you. And then we'll go back to the second question. And I alluded to the questions we're going to be discussing just a couple of moments ago. We have heard from a number of people, why would we change our name? We have become this. And we've heard from just as many people, why would we keep that name? We have become something else. And so that to me is the elephant in the room. And in order to hear each other best, my desire is that we really take those 2 questions apart and leave them separate. So when we talk about the first question, which is going to be, why would we keep the same name? We are going to be like practiced debaters who are taking that position, whether you feel it or not, so that you can understand your colleagues who do feel that. And then after we get a chance to share those thoughts, then we'll come back again. And then the opposite side of that will be presented. But today we are really trying to collect all the best reasons for each position so that they can be fairly evaluated. And so that we can all hear each other with sympathy and grace. And so that's kind of my lead into question one. I imagine we'll talk in small groups for about 7 minutes on the first question. We'll talk for about 5 more minutes as a whole group, and then we'll break up again for the second question. So the first question, does everybody understand what the process I'm going for here? Okay. So the first question is really any version of this that you heard in your own head. But the way we wrote it is, why would a church choose to keep its same name? Why would you do that? What are the benefits of keeping the same name? What good things could happen? Even if you're not sure they will, what could be a benefit of keeping the same name? And what we gain as a community. So really think about, as we break up, why might keeping the same name be good? Or why would somebody do that? And sharing what you would feel about that is certainly legit. Please don't share your negative emotions yet, unless that's all. Try to keep it separate and try to keep this part positive. But how would you feel if we kept the same? So your feelings are a part of this, in addition to a nice bullet list of benefits. So let's begin. Question one: why would we keep the same name, and how would we answer? So you talk to any group of 2, 3, 4 that you've All right, let's pause and come back together on this. If you were in the middle of saying something, you probably do want to tell us about it. We've sent around the little 3x5 cards. Please use those to express a thought that doesn't come out in this little conversation, or anything related to naming that you want to write on it. That's really something you can express yourself in whatever mode you're most comfortable in. But let's what we're interested in is, what were the best parts of the conversations happening around the room? What did you hear that you found yourself going, oh yeah. So please, from groups, raise a hand, and Jake will get you a mic so that we all can hear what was happening in your group.
And I have pens here if anybody needs anything to write on note cards.
Well, I'll just kind of quickly reflect the various points that were made in our group in terms of reasons for maintaining our current name. Well, we've done this for 3 years, so it's at the very least familiar, but there's also a sense of starting to create an identity around that name. It does reflect a history, and our shared lived history for many of us, if not all of us. So there's a comfort level because there's been a lot of change for the last 3 years. So, this could be more change. For some folks, St. James, we did lose our building, so there is, that's another level of loss potentially for some of us. And that the name does tell the story of the parish. Things as we go.
Thank you.
I'm going to raise my hand, Jake.
Okay. Sorry.
Tom said something very telling, that when Jesus sent his disciples out into the world to be in the world, he generally sent them 2 by 2.
Thank you.
Our group unanimously said, no matter what the name is, we're still going to come to this worship space. So that was good to hear. For the most part, keep the name, it's fine. We feel that it really does reflect mission statement, meaning St. James and St. Luke's as saints, as apostles of Jesus, truly did live his message as they continued on into their lives. So it fills that need. We prefer not to have the church named after a saint, other than the two guys that we already have. No, there was a voiced opinion that they would prefer not having a saint name because most of the saints are men. I'm going to do a study on that one. Okay, and we've already kind of accepted the name because we've been called St. Luke's and James for the past, 2 years. See anything? Okay.
Thank you. I don't have tons to add, some of it you all covered, we did too, just as some people. 2 other thoughts that we had. There's kind of this identity or familiarity that the church has within the greater community, Christian community, both in the state or within the diocese, where people know who St. Luke's and James both were and are currently through our interactions with the diocese. And then also keeping the name is a continuation of how we managed the challenges of the last 3 years, both the coming together and combining, but also then navigating COVID or everything else that's been going on.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I realized that I'm actually not supposed to participate in this exercise. It's supposed to be neutral. But one of the things that a couple of members of our team brought up is the legal challenge of making a change might suggest that we be better off living in the way that it is, and then honoring the traditions of a very successful coming together of 2 congregations with 2 different histories in a way that's been very positive and very uplifting and very successful, because it doesn't always happen.
One question about what you said. You said that some of the legal challenges might say that there's some benefit to leaving it what it is, and I'm not sure what you mean by that. But I do want to point out that legally we need to go through all those changes regardless of what we change it to, unless we leave it St. Luke's. Because legally that's where everything is. And so I just want to make that clear.
I don't know that we have a lot to add to our conversations. I've heard it reflected with other people's groups. We felt it was a history. We also thought, ease of research. When people are trying to find somebody who was baptized in a certain time in history, and they thought, St. Luke and James, they got a chance at finding the church in the records. That was one. These were 2 both very strong saints. St. Luke is like a healing saint, and I thought was another St. James. When I think of St. James, I think of a man of action. And so then that kind of reflects us, so that reflected. And we've gotten used to it. We've become something new in the name of St. Luke and James, referring to ourselves that way. We've become something.
Thank you.
I want to say something. I agree with that. I think that St. James and St. Luke's is a very, very powerful name. I've got 2 suggestions about it if we wanted to change our name. And I'm not saying we want to change our names. 2 suggestions that I have would be St. Clements or Cornerstone. Now, if there's another St. Clements, then, or okay, so maybe Cornerstone, then.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to open to the next question, unless there's a group that feels like, oh, we still have something to say.
Yeah. Bruce made a good point that even if we change it, we might still call it Sts Luke James. So it's like a very practical thing, but I think it's an interesting point that then we have 3 names in that plan.
You could write it in purple, the church formerly known as St. Luke James.
We have undersold the idea of a glyph being our name.
And I heard something, Dave, I want to say. I didn't participate, but I heard this, that we're 3 strands coming together, and we're stronger because of that.
Thank you very much for thinking in this mode, this moving object thing. We're about to do that at the other topic.
I would just say for our group, we talked about many of the same things that you all talked about. I think we also ended up recognizing that we were all sort of befuddled.
Say that again.
Befuddled.
Befuddled.
All right, so let's spend some time. It'll be like 5 minutes of conversation, and then we'll come together. And really, we're just going to reverse. It's the exact same wording. Why would we choose a new name? What are the benefits of a new identity? What do we gain as a community? How would that make you feel? So again, try to focus on whatever would be a positive reason for a new name, so that we can all feel that just as well as we heard the first point of view. I want to at least give everybody a chance to reflect what they've been through. Again, you have 1 card in case the idea that you've got in your head is been trapped there and you would like to write it down. If the conversation time is not sufficient, write down your thoughts. You can use one side for your pro and one side for your con, although we aren't really in a pro-con situation. We're in a pro-pro. So right now we're talking about what are the possible good things about changing the name of our parish.
Dave, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
We have this summary, I'm not quite sure how we should use it or what exactly it means. What strikes me is that there are a lot of names here that are among the names that I've heard bandied about, and that seem to be perhaps not appropriate or names that we could recommended that we don't consider. I wonder if anybody has put together any kind of list of possible names that would fulfill all of the
The list is really what's been in the air. It is not a recommended list. That list has the dead ends. Yes, that people have told us that we already researched that. Yeah?
My understanding was that the name couldn't be the same. Didn't understand that the name with Episcopal Church attached.
Can you use the mic, please? Because we're losing the whole conversation over here.
Sorry. It just became clear today to me that if you couldn't have a church that had the same saint, but had Episcopal Church attached to it instead of Catholic Church, I thought that would have been legal, evidently not. So one thing I would suggest if you're thinking of a name is to type in the name you're thinking and into Google Maps and find out what comes up.
Thank you, Tom. And to be clear, the conflict is it's not a legality necessarily. It's just something we want to strongly consider, so.
Just ask Susan.
Right, so people say, whatever, awful lot of times you don't include the word Catholic Church. You know, if you say I go to St. Cecilia, you don't hear anything beyond that. And
That's what we were trying to do. But let's go to those positive things about changing them.
We have John activity.
I just wanted to point out, two of the disciples have the same name. We're following up two of the churches have the same name. Which is why can't there be two, whatever.
You're being counterproductive. That was not the question.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, he's going there, okay.
All right, so coming back, there were a couple of thoughts. First is that currently you might have people referencing the church based off of either St. Luke's or St. James just because it's easier. It might be something that people are used to if they are formerly of St. Luke's or St. James. And that might cause others who aren't of that history to feel excluded, or if you aren't familiar with that necessarily, might be confused. Secondly, we are something new. This is a new church, even though it is two former churches coming together in a space that one was previously in and one was not. This is a new church. The name of this church will outlive all of us, including individuals that come from each of those churches. And then there were reasons that the churches combined and that the health of those churches wasn't sustainable, and this one, faith willing, is. And ultimately, answering the question of what is our identity now versus what our identity together is now versus what our identities were in the past cycle.
Thank you, John.
One comment that came up in our conversation is that, we know we need a new sign, we know we'll have to come up with a new logo no matter what we do, but that it might feel more energizing to do that work with a new name rather than our current name.
Thank you.
So in our group, there was a lot of discussion about inclusivity coming out of the words that we pulled out of our mission in our last meeting, and that led some people to say that they really have issue with the two male saint names in our name right now. And some people were drawn to beloved community because it really builds on the whole idea of inclusivity. It doesn't draw on any particular saint, including not purposely going to something like a female saint or something like that, but it's just a more general approach to being more neutral and addressing issues of inclusivity. There was also a comment made that Jesus renamed some of his disciples, so thinking of that gives us some impetus to rename ourselves. And also a comment that like St. James lost its building, St. Luke has not lost that much less yet. And so maybe there's a reciprocal, going forward, each having change in our history. I think that ends. Oh yes, and the awkwardness. Someone said that the name is a tongue twister. You can't get past the saints. And to add to that, I know I've experienced documents where I see Saints Luke and James written out 4 times in one document, and it's different. It's 4 different ways in the same document. So it's that issue.
Thank you.
A new name would solidify our identity. We'd be kind of becoming a new, well, we use a term thing, but a new congregation. New people like having a new name because they feel that they're part of a brand new congregation. And we would be laying down a new foundation of worship, following our mission statement.
Thank you.
We talked quite a bit more about what Sandy just said. We did not address what the new name would be, but we did talk about the fact that we felt that the legacy folks from each previous parish really wouldn't necessarily lose anything. It would be within them and their history and what they would share. But we have, and hopefully have more new people who would join in to something that would be a new community moving forward.
Thank you.
Justify that this isn't for us, and so trying to explain the history, and every time you talk to someone is not a big benefit. And as much as St. James was a strong saint, and St. Luke was a strong saint, ask 99% of the population who would have a clue as to what either one of those saints did. So thinking about a name that would generate an image of who we are makes more sense.
Thank you.
As she rightly said, that what we came upon was that the current name is too awkward. St. James, St. Luke, and stuff like that. So, as I said, we definitely agree with the name. It's very awkward. And what should be involved should be show some sort of positive identity for the new name. So that's basically what we came up with.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Michelle, you had your hand up for a second.
Our group was terribly resistant to this conversation, the question. And I was persistent pursuing this question, but it was a little bit hard.
This half.
This half of this question, yeah. So the idea, so we did talk about the idea of a concept being exciting to represent us as a parish. And then it was disappointing to see all the concepts that were listed that, were already been taken. So that was a little disheartening. But I think one thing that came out of this conversation from our group was that whatever we do, we need to do this very well so that there's not resentments. So, good luck.
Thank you.
In abstract, the idea of a new name sounds good, but it's hard to say that until you know what particular new name we're talking about.
I'm just wondering if there's been an attempt to collect ideas from just the new people who've come since we integrated. I'd be really curious to know how they feel about this.
Yeah. There hasn't been any
Concerted effort to do that. Well, I think we will close here, and I just have to say thank you for entering into the spirit of this as gracious listeners, where one of our real goals today was to make sure we heard out loud the really reasonable, kind of life-affirming reasons to do both things. And having those in our head as we narrow choices is going to be a good reminder of how we live together, where sometimes things change, or sometimes things don't change ever. And there has to be a big well of grace inside of you to move ahead with that. Let's say a quick final prayer.
Is there at some point like a list of names that are being considered and we're going to talk about those names?
Probably.
What was the question?
Yeah, the question was, is there going to be a list a specific list of names that we can talk about? And I'm answering a very soft probably because I don't know exactly how we're going to come to a decision. I think you've heard this is going to be tricky. And Jake is going to bail me out. Go, Jake.
I'll just say in all the communications that we've been trying to get to everyone, there have been these listening sessions, no cards were handed to you, an email address, and eventually we're going to send out a survey. But we're serious when we mean we want your feedback and we want your ideas. So it's not a list that we're going to generate necessarily. It's a list that will be generated by the folks in the community. So we really encourage you to take some time, take some thought, and submit a name that you think is appropriate and why you think it is appropriate. And so that's part of your work as well as ours. So thank you.
I will close this in prayer. Lord Jesus, we are grateful to be the ones in this room. Thank you for gathering us as friends, colleagues, fellow parishioners, and loved ones. Give us the grace to move forward together as a united family. And we look forward to what is ahead. In Jesus' name, amen.